the weekend again. Sit back, relax, we got the brain of band. No need to stress in the house, it's Van Bellen. The game is windsurfing, you can't yell them or tell them. We get the news, the views, the win biz. The brand's gear tips plus the world's best quiz. The Cubs, PWA. We're professionals without the pay. There's nothing in pole dancing that we won't chat. From tandem boards to a windsurfing cat. It's your one-stop shop for a laugh and listen. Tune in each week or you'll be doing the missing.
My goodness, we're back.
We are back. We're back. It's been a while.
Oh, I've almost forgotten what to do.
I had forgotten what to do. Good job you're here.
How are you, Benny? Are you surviving?
I would say surviving is a good word. I am surviving. The second child is different to the first child.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've obviously had a couple. Yeah, well, we've obviously had a couple of chats, so I'm a little bit up to speed. But sounds like you're trying to catch up on some sleep and everything else going on.
It's pretty hectic. I won't lie. I won't bore people. For people who haven't got kids, they're like, "Oh my god, shut up! We don't know about your kids." Oh my god, like you know when you hear people talk about kids and you haven't got them, you do go, yeah, whatever, mate, yeah. When you've got them, you're like, I remember that guy was telling me.
Yeah.
This podcast is going to be coming more regularly now because I get a quiet bit for like 2 hours. Perfect. But yes, anyone, we are back. It's been a while. Make sure, just let us know because we're about out of sync with this whole podcasting thing. But there are some new features. Like now, the comments come up on the main page. I've added them in just in case you wanted to see it. But
okay.
I think we can add them in bigger if we want, like that. Big love from Jeff. Cheers, mate. But they will pop up on the screen. We'll see if it works. Let us know if the audio's good, everything's working. But we are going to be discussing the summer. And I mean the summer because it's been that long since we've done a podcast. We have planned a few, but they've not worked out so far. But now it's calming down a bit. Well, for me anyway, we've got all the PWA events out the way, and I have had an absolute hectic summer. I can't lie. I've been flat out. But I
think this whole podcast is really going to be about you, Benny, because over here it's winter, so not a lot going on. So I think everyone is going to be curious about your experiences, and obviously Fuerteventura, Tenerife, everything else has been going on in between.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. It has been kind of crazy. I'm trying to think when was the last time we did a podcast. I'm not sure I like these headphones. I might have to take them off. Do my head in. But where have we got? What have we been doing? Because I think the last time we did a podcast, I think I went to Pozo for the Pozo training diaries. So we did like the full build up to Pozo. Then we obviously had the competition, which was just 10 days. Probably the most intense commentary gig I have done because I think we did something every day, which was just incredible. We did a double elimination in every category. And I'll be honest, I was on the edge because I was ill. I was properly ill before the competition. Like, I don't know, people banned around COVID quite easily, but it was some sort of flu-y type thing. I was like on my arse. I didn't think I'd make it through the week. And then obviously started the commentary and I was a bit ill. No competitor wanted to come into the box and help me out with the commentary. Rightly so. They didn't want to catch any lurgy from me. So then I literally spent 9 hours on my own talking to you guys at home. So it was kind of an interesting way to kick off the summer.
Mate, you did well because I remember speaking to you just before the start. You were coughing your guts out. So, yeah, you somehow held it together, mate. Yeah, but how was... like starting with Fuerte, what was the general? Well, it actually seemed to me, looking from the outside in, that the sailors were happy and there was a good vibe at that event. Was it? That was a
yes. I mean, Fuerte. The thing is, it was just like all windsurfing events. We're going to come onto them because each one of them had their problems. And they had their good points. Obviously, a lot of it depends on the forecast. Now, Fuerte, we had that amazing forecast. You know, we had fin racing. You know, it was the first one of the year. It was hardcore, like hardcore. We had also, I think a lot of you guys obviously don't see the event as I see it. You see it through the eyes of the cameras. So that also has an effect on how everything comes across. And it was a new crew, like a new live stream crew in Furta.
Yeah.
So that was interesting because you don't know how that's going to go. And they've done obviously events before. I think it's a Greek crew, and they did a great job. Like I thought they had 2 drones, which is, you know, it costs money. Hello, look, this is what we're dealing with.
Oh, hello,
Miss Vilma.
got beautiful hair.
Yeah, we had
Benny.
2 drones, which makes a huge difference to like how you can cover it, because you can have like the winners. And I know what you're thinking. Where does she get that hair from? For anyone who's listening audio only, it's right. My daughter's just come and joined me. She's got a serious face on. But
does she? Any words coming out?
well, she can't hear because you're all on here.
Oh, that's true. I guess. Yeah.
So she's probably like, "What's he doing? Do you want to go see Mom?" Okay, you shut the door, babe. Thanks. Thanks, babe. Sorry. So yeah, I mean so that makes a big difference. You know, we had obviously the beach interviews, which I think also makes, you know, a difference as well. When you've got beach interviews, you've got everything going on. We had some good quality action like fin slalom, full power. I don't think it gets better than that for me. Like, I'd be interested to see what you guys think at home, but I feel fin racing is making a bit of more of a comeback, like I don't want to say comeback. I think obviously foil racing has its place, light winds, wind, you know, guaranteed results and everything. But there is definitely for me a buzz about fin racing, and I think windsurfing, that is our difference to winging, to all the other stuff like fin, actual proper windsurfing. I hate calling it fin windsurfing because that to me is just windsurfing. I shouldn't have to say if it's a fin or a foil, but I think that felt amazing. I thought that event, I thought there was like, you didn't really know who was going to win until Pierre put on that like amazing performance towards the end. It was looking, you know, really close and really, you know, on it. But I thought it was, and you know, Matt Check had a chance until late on. Geordie was obviously pushing, then had that big crash, and it was just like everything was going on. But I think it was pretty epic in terms of slalom.
Yeah. No, it was. I really enjoyed watching. I think everyone enjoyed watching it too. The racing, it's just easy to follow. You know, you can sit back. The thing I love about it too is that when a race is done, there's another one that backs up relatively quickly, unless obviously you go into a new elimination, then you have that half an hour, 40-minute break or whatever it was. But
yeah,
I love the fact that another race is starting pretty quick after. You know, it just keeps the energy flowing. I sort of said at the start of the podcast, Fuerte and Tenerife, but of course there was Pozo as well.
Yeah.
I forgot. God, it's just been a run, hasn't it? God, I just totally forgot about all that as well. So it's
I mean, Pozo was a funny one, I thought, because you know, we've got lots of categories, and this is another subject we're going to come on to, because there is, you know, difference of opinion in that, and it's always interesting to hear the people at home. But there's a lot of different categories. You know, a fair few years ago, there was literally just pro men, pro women. That was it, and they had, you know, a wide event, and they would pick the best days for the pros, and there would be a bit of downtime. So in terms of media commentary, there was a bit more space to do stuff. Nowadays, we've got all these junior categories, got the masters and double eliminations in each one. There was no breathing room. And actually in Pozo this year, obviously the pro men and pro women were done literally after the first 2 days. So it's a 10-day event. So a lot of the hype, you know, because, you know, the juniors are ripping, and obviously they've got a certain following, and I think it's, for me, great to have them there. And same with the masters, I've really enjoyed it. But I think, you know, the majority of people out there, the one that gets the biggest pull is the pro men. You know, pro women is probably next, and then it kind of drifts down after that. But the pro men was done after the first 2 days, and in some quite crazy conditions. Not very wavy, but like some of the windiest some of these guys have ever sailed in Pozo, they said. And that shouldn't be taken lightly. It never looks as windy on the stream, but it was crazy.
It looked windy. It looked windy. Yeah, yeah. I know it was insane. Yeah, when you saw Costa that was literally getting catapulted and blown around in the wave, you know it's windy.
Yeah, 100%.
He was struggling to survive, but yeah. But how did you feel? Like over, we can get into each of the event details, but just the overall run of the events. I mean, they're all back to back. I guess at the end, is everyone a bit sort of worn out, or I mean, what's it like for the sailors? I mean, there's commentating. What's it like for the actual sailors themselves?
I can speak from my point of view, media, or not even from media, but just my point of view from a commentary perspective. It's pretty full on that, because it was 10 days, 4 days, 10 days, 4 days, 10 days. I came back in the middle of Fuerte. I didn't do the freestyle. Like I left Dieter to do it because I knew they'd got a lot of cover. A lot of the freestylers help out and they know all the moves and that sort of stuff. So I kind of went home early, spend a bit of time with the family. Otherwise I'd be in trouble. But it was that sort of gap between them is really difficult. And I think you can look at it two ways. The gap is good if you're a young ripper and you're up and coming and you just go over to the Canaries for the summer and you just basically go from one event to the next event. It's different though, because the wave event is the first event and then Fuerte's got nothing to do with waves. So most of those guys go to Tenerife and they have a bit of time to warm up. The slalom guys, it's the same, but then there's a very short gap between Tenerife. Do they want to come home in between? What the thinking is they can literally go from one event to the other. So, the Finn guys, there's only 2 events on the Slalom X Tour this year, and Fuerte is the first one and Tenerife is the second one. They don't have to go home. They just get their kit from one island to the next island. Now, there's different ways to look at that. Some people want to come home and and then go back again. But there are other people that don't want to do it. Just for what I heard when I was in Tenerife, the organizers actually wanted to do foil slalom. That was the idea. And I've heard a few people saying the opposite. Oh, why did they do fin slalom in Tenerife? But because he wanted to have racing and wave, and he wanted to do foil. But obviously, after lots of discussions with the riders and they wanted to have a tour on the Slalom X, they wanted to have at least 2 events. And it was looking like the other event wasn't going to happen in Pozo. And obviously, the gear they had in Fuerte, they could just get to Tenerife without any hassle. So that was why it ended up being Slalom X in Tenerife. But there was a few issues with Tenerife, which weren't apparent at the beginning. But if anyone watched the live stream, you'll know, which one of them was the buoys. The buoys, you couldn't put anchors in because of the seagrass, because there was some environmental thing going on that if you disturb the seagrass, if there's one strain of seagrass on the anchor when they check, then that would be the event cancelled or something, which was, it seemed, I mean, from the outside, from me looking in, going, oh my God. And the organizers didn't know this at first. This was like a late thing that happened. So then they had to get these buoys, which are GPS programmed, and they've basically got little engines on them, little propellers, which keep them in place. But obviously, when you're doing Slalom X, you want to put these buoys in the waves, because that was the whole idea of going to Tenerife. But that kind of went a little bit out the window. So there was a few things which weren't easy to see happening, which happened, which caused a few like things that they weren't expecting, because the whole idea was to put the buoys in the waves, which would have been amazing.
Yeah, right.
No, go on.
No, but obviously during the race, the boys moved a bit. Huh? Like sometimes they wouldn't hold position, or
only one time that happened. But again, the problem was, and everyone who watched the live stream will know, is obviously when it was great Slalom X weather, it was great wave sailing weather. So this was more the problem. The crossover was quite good, although the Slalom X guys, they had like a proper good day of racing. Like it was really interesting to watch. They were still on their bigger gear, which is when they register the gear, it's like medium boards and 7.5 sails. So it's not the biggest gear they've got. If it was open, they would have had the big wide boards, like 85 wide and 8 something sails, and they would have been able to race in quite light winds. So that was the thing, hindsight with the forecast we had, I'm pretty sure foil racing, that most people would have picked it and they would have done lots more racing. But with the medium gear, on the side of the wave, did it work? I like watching fin racing, but as a combined event, you'd have to say maybe it lent itself towards more foiling. if you want to get more action and more stuff going on. But again, that's knowing the forecast. The one thing you don't know, the Canaries could have been windy all week and it wouldn't have been a problem. And it happened that week wasn't the best forecast. So they got everything done. Again, a little bit of controversy there, but maybe we'll talk about that. I don't know, in a bit. Yeah, but they got a full result in the men and the pro women, and they did some junior youth categories as well.
What was the riders' reaction to, just racing on fins? Because the last few years, we saw it was fin only, and then we saw the foil starting to come up, and then it almost seemed like the fin was almost dead the way it was going. And now all of a sudden we've just been seeing fin racing. It's almost like, okay, we're going back to that again. But what was the racers' reaction to using fin? Are they,
I think again, I've spoken to a few, so I can't speak for everyone, but I think it's probably good that this summer bit is fin, because then you can kind of concentrate on fin. You get it out the way, and then you get your foil stuff go back out. I think crossing in between is when it starts to get a little bit tricky. Last year, they did fin and foil at one event, and the guys were definitely at a disadvantage if they were doing both. So I think, in terms of, okay, we're going to do fin side. I mean, look at Amado Vrieswijk this year. Okay, yes, he's changed sails onto 0.7, but fully concentrate on fin, finishes second in Tenerife, and let's say that, it was interesting to see his progression. Like, I think he's got better, but I think everyone, in terms of you guys watching, let us know. But I want to see more races. That's ideally what we want to see. And there is talk of, and I suggested this quite a while ago, so I feel like I'm going to take a bit of credit, but there could be, coming from the sounds of it, a storm chase slalom event, which so it'd be on a forecast, couple of days, going to be probably up in Denmark. And it'll be on a forecast. So they look for the forecast and then they just have it 2 days flat out on the sea, in the waves, doing, whatever that takes. And I'm a big fan of this. Will it work? I can't say. But you would imagine with a decent forecast, you can guarantee fin action, as long as you don't put it in the middle of a storm. So I think
but when you say storm chase, this is not a Red Bull event.
Not a Red Bull event, but just the same theory of a forecast. Let's have it. Again, I don't necessarily think it'll be a full-blown PWA event. Could be a separate event. Could be part of the PWA. I haven't heard the details on that. But in terms of a concept, I think windsurfing needs to be based around forecasts. Like, you just don't go to the beach on a set weekend because you're going to go windsurfing. I mean, maybe that's been the death of windsurfing, but essentially you'll look at the forecast, go, 25 knots today, right, I'm going. On the 5 knot day, you don't go. And the problem is, when you set an event, you've got all these sponsors all reliant, so they need a set date because you need to get the councils approved and all this stuff. And it does put the reins on some of the windsurfing events that we want to see, which is, there's certain places that on the right forecast can be amazing, but to try and guess the week and just hope that it lines up always seems crazy to me. But
so this slalom event, is it? It'll be like a PWA rated event.
That is what I need to clarify. I can't clarify that at the moment. But that's the talk. Again, who knows? I mean, doing something on a forecast, what it's like as well. When you plan a weekend, you go, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And you tell everyone, and then the weekend comes and the forecast changes. That could be the ultimate worst scenario. But I think with the right weather patterns, I think you can predict it to be pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty good. And that event, is it more just about getting it in extreme conditions, or is it more like is it an event where they'll try to do things like beach starts and stuff like that, or is it more just on water?
I've heard rumors. Well, now I'm saying it sounds ridiculous. I heard 35 knots would be the minimum type call, which seems, that's excessive. That's crazy. And they're talking about Widersander on the sea and maybe in the fjord as well, like the inland sea thing. Again, not sure how much this is common knowledge, but I think it's cool to talk about it, get people's interest. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And I guess we will find out in due course of
Wow.
how that works out. But I mean, obviously the title of this video and the thumbnail, I put about that long distance race, and I'm genuinely interested to hear your guys' thoughts at home. Well, actually, firstly, I'll speak to you. Long distance race. Obviously, the coverage, because of the way, just for people who don't know, who tried to watch it live, it didn't work. Because basically, and you can tell me as a drone guy, but the drone guys were pretty on it. But they said their controller was just heating up because it was plugged in somewhere. They were halfway, and it got so hot. They were saying that had a problem, something to do with the signal.
Yeah. Okay. Never experienced that myself, but it could be true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
so there was some problem, and it was all working beforehand, as usual with live. Like all the people that always come on the comments go, "Why didn't you check it?" You're like, they're not idiots, like most of these people who are working and all this stuff. When something goes wrong and it's live, it's not because of like, I mean, it has been in the past, but I would say more often than not, it's been checked, it's working fine. As soon as you click that live switch, it's like, I think this also happens. As soon as you click the live switch, it means the competition's on. So more people are in the area, more cell phones are in the area, more people are trying to fly a drone at the same. There's lots of stuff going on, and that sometimes, for whatever reason, causes a problem. It always happens in silt, and happened in Japan. Everything's working great, and you sort of the event starts up, and then other people are turning on all this other stuff, and then it has an effect. So the bandwidth goes down or whatever it happens.
Yeah. And look, my experience from the events I've been to is I think I was surprised how many cables and things are running all over the place to get this live stream up. You sort of think, oh yeah, someone chuck a drone in the air and you just plug a controller into the internet or something.
I should have took a picture behind the scenes, actually, because the guy in Tenerife, who got a bit of stick, to be fair, he has got a massive system. I mean, it looked like a full-blown television
broadcast studio.
It was crazy. But the problem is when something starts to go wrong.
I know, you got a million cables. Where do you start? And
I'm looking at it going, and there was a point where obviously I've had a lot of messages about this. There was apparently a funny moment, not that funny for me, but he put me on screen in the middle of like the whole stuff just going wrong. And I am already losing my hair. I'm already like on the edge of just like, what is going on? Just turn it off. Like, we need to fix these problems. And then there was a switch where it went to me, and I'm there going, and I'm looking at him. He gets up off his seat and he's playing with all these wires at the back of the thing. And I just know that I'm on the screen for the next, I don't know, ages.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't.
No, it's it's not quite as straightforward as you think, but it's just tricky. And the problem is when there is a problem, you're live and you're trying to sort this issue out as it's live. And
and that's the thing. And everything you do, I've said it a lot of times on the streams, I don't want to bore people, but everything you do, every camera movement you make wrong, every time you relax, like these camera guys are filming for 15 minutes. Well, they actually film for like 13 minutes with 2-minute transition. And as I said in the live stream, you're filming for like, you can't move because every time you move wrong, someone sees it at home. So you're focused on this guy for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you get 2 minutes off. So in that 2 minutes, you don't get 2 minutes because at the end of the heat, you've got to carry on because maybe they're still on a wave. So that already takes 30 seconds. And then they'll cut to a wide and the director goes, okay, you have a break. So he has a break, he sits like back and goes, oh, probably just relaxes. If he smokes, he might try and get a quick bag. And then literally 30 seconds after that, they go, right, you've got to get the next guy because when they start the heat, and I'm there going, come on, we need to find the guy. And the guy's already like, so he has like a literally less than a minute break to have a wee, to get some, like do anything.
No,
it's carnage, man. It's hard work. It's not easy. I know.
No.
Again, and I keep saying this. You've got to remember the crew that do these events. It includes the commentary crew. You've got to remember, there's just me. Like if you look at any other event you follow, there's usually 2 commentators, and then they change with another 2 commentators every couple of hours. It's rare you have one, and it's very rare you have one that goes for 8-9 hours on his own.
Yeah.
So and same with the judges, everyone it's tight, because the budgets aren't there and everyone's doing a good job, but everyone is stretched. Like, you have to remember that.
Yeah. No, like it's, yeah, a lot of the time it works well, but when it doesn't, that's when everybody notices it, I guess. But no, look, it was overall good. I think in Tenerife, it was obviously there was some issues there, and you mentioned us about the long distance race. Unfortunately,
let's talk about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, just as it was starting, was when it became quite difficult to witness it.
But you saw the
you got the
highlight
idea.
video. You saw the highlight video.
Yeah. And look, the thing is, I think because the commentating is a huge part of the broadcast, it's probably even more important than the visual in a lot of ways. So if you just keep talking, although it was hard for you as well sometimes, wasn't it? Because you couldn't actually see yourself.
The thing is, what people sometimes don't realize, I see what you guys see. I could do my commentary from here in Portugal. I did in Guadeloupe. It didn't change anything because I get the screen that you get, and I'm just talking you guys through it. So I'm with you for the whole painful journey sometimes. And obviously that moment where there was a delay for starters, but then the drone was just getting less and less pixels as we went through the race. And at one point, I was like, I just had to laugh because it was just like,
yeah, I know.
You can't get much worse than this, without having a picture.
I was actually waiting for you to have a mini mental breakdown by that stage after the third event.
I'd already coughed
Be a pro.
if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
But that's why you are paid the big bucks, Benny, to keep your cool.
But okay, let's talk about the long distance race because there are difference of opinions, and I'm genuinely keen to hear them. I've got my take on it, and I'm pretty firm in that. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone can persuade me differently. I've spoke to a few of the sailors. I know different sailors, opinions on it. So we're going to start with Mr. Van Bellen. What's your opinion? Well, we could start with the comments. You decide which way we start.
Well, so we're talking specifically about Tenerife because there's also the one in the Fuerte. They had one as well.
I'm talking what I'm actually talking about is specifically Tenerife and the beach finish. I think that's the controversial side of it. There are other stuff to be talked about, long distance and full fleet racing. One of them being Jordi Vonk over the line early in a full fleet race. You're last. You are in trouble. But again, there's going to be difference of opinions on that. But I'm talking specifically about the one with the beach finish. What's your take?
Well, I like seeing something new. So that's the first thing I'll say. It was something a bit different. So that's kind of exciting. I think it sort of wakes you up out of your slumber. Oh, what's going to happen here? The beach finish side of it was interesting because I was waiting to see if someone was going to get the head chopped off in the beach. That was that was kind of interesting. I thought that was pretty actually what happened there, Benny? So they ran.
Maybe I should just paint the picture first because there's a lot of stuff that you guys don't see. So we set the scene. We're on the last day of the event. Yeah. Okay, so last day of the event. The event is sponsored by Hotel Playa Surf, which is, the big sponsor for the event. If that sponsor's not there, that event doesn't happen. Nothing. It's not happening. It would be a lot of work. It would be. So I think this sponsor, you have to say, is a windsurfer, owns a hotel, owns a center, and he was really keen to do this format, which I think makes a lot of sense. You got the way Tenerife is, there's a big bay, and everyone who watched this race could see the race happening all the way down the coast, and then they saw this finish at the end, and it was creating a lot of buzz. So with everything to do with racing, you go, okay, how do we do it? We want to schedule a time. It's going to start at this time, get the whole crowd, the whole thing, everyone's ready. That's what we're going to do. So it's a lot of organizers, a lot of holiday makers there. So they get the beach, they spread it out, they tell everyone to get off the water. It's all going great. We start the race. Halfway down, the wind drops. They have to abandon the race. So then you're in this position where there's still a little bit of conditions. Maybe they could do the some of the wave stuff, but there's only one set of crew. There's not two crews. There's not one for racing and one for wave judging. There's just one set of crew. So it's like now you're in this position, like they really want to do this long distance race. There was less wind on the outside. So even though it was windy on the inside, there was less wind on the outside. So people are flying around on the inside, but on the outside, there was not much wind. So when you looked on the camera, you were like, well, it's windy. Come on, let's go. And then people were flying off the beach going, hey. But you're like, when you go out to the outside mark, it was light. So this was obviously causing a few confusion things. And they still wanted to do this long distance race. They were waiting. And there was one boat got smashed in the waves, which ruined the engine or did something to the engine. So they were a boat down. So they couldn't do normal racing, because you need a boat at different marks, and there were one boat short because of this problem they had in the waves. So all this stuff you don't see. So the long distance race was the best way out. The sponsor wanted it. They're like, okay, brilliant. But now they had to delay it for the wind to pick up, and they had a cutoff, which was 4 o'clock. So if no races started before 4, they couldn't do an official race after that. They'd been told, I can't remember what the reasoning was, but I remember hearing there was a 4 o'clock cutoff. 4 o'clock came, they were still reading lighter winds on the outside, 8 to 10 knots or something, is what I spoke to Ben van der Steen. So then after 4, they were like, look, it's still light on the outside. We want to do this race. We're pretty much, everyone's in place. We're just going to do it as a fun race. So that was what happened. They did it as a fun race. And then typically the fun race, everyone playing full power all the way down. Now, the problem is, which is why I had a kind of mini heart attack at the end, is obviously this was a couple of hours after they'd cleared the beach. So now trying to clear the beach again didn't go as well as from what I could see on the camera, because when you actually, there was one picture, it was like a scene out of like, one of those old cartoons where there's just random stuff happening everywhere. There's someone surfing, there's a foiler walking up the beach, there's sunbathers parked up in the running area, so there was judges down there trying to go like, we're going. And this was just like, just kind of like herd cats. It was like, they said it was just impossible. They would get rid of a couple, then another couple would come in. Yeah. And it was just, it was pretty,
it was pretty chaotic. Yeah.
But the race obviously went ahead. And so obviously people who don't know, if that had been a real race, everybody, apart from Bruno Martini, would have been disqualified. And Bruno didn't even finish the race because, and I said this on the stream, when you have a fun race and it's a long distance race, they're not doing a general recall. And everyone knows this. They just want the glory of, leading the race. So what happens is you start to go to the mark and everyone doesn't want to get behind. So then everyone just creeps out, and basically everyone was over. So literally everyone was over, according to Ben van der Steen, apart from Bruno Martini. And Bruno, I said to him afterwards, he was like, what's going on? What's going on? He said, when he realized, he was like, shit. And then he started to go, but he was already like deep, and he was like, bollocks. So he just decided to come back. He was like, well, there's no point racing. I'm back in the pack in a fun race. It's not much fun. So that was kind of the real thing that happened. Even Ricardo did that race actually as well. He grabbed someone's gear and did it. But then okay, so we do the race. It's windy. Everything looked good. If you saw the beach, there was Amado, and apparently from Amado, he told me he wasn't going full power towards the beach, and this could be a few reasons. He said he was waiting for Tati. Make of that what you will. I don't know. They had this agreement where they were going to sail over the beach together. And then he heard someone. He said he thought it was Tati. It was actually Pierre Mortefon. Pierre went past him. So then the race was on all the way to the beach, through the carnage. And then Pierre, like in all true, beach finishes, as he got to the beach, you don't know when to go. And if you go too early, you literally go from 25 knots or whatever speed you're going towards the beach, 20 knots, to like your feet hit the water, your body's still going at 20 knots. So then you're not nearly falling over. And then you're trying to run up the beach. Amado sees that, goes a little bit shallower, jumps off, and then he obviously runs past, and then he wins the race. I mean, it was a close finish, but it was exciting. Like if you were on the beach and you saw that happening, in terms of normal media and normal punters on the beach watching it, mega exciting, like fun to watch.
Yeah, well, when I saw the replay, you could obviously see all those things that you couldn't see in the live stream because
Yeah.
of the poor quality. But the other thing that I was thinking was it all just finished so quickly. I was actually, it was, I wanted to see more.
Well,
Because just
so
as like, yeah,
I think that, so if I'm looking at that race and we're going to, because everything, and again, this was a really good reason for doing it. They wanted to do the fun race because they also, all these rules have been voted for by the sailors. So the sailors have got together. Slalom X is not slalom, it's Slalom X. And the X is there's different, they have give the rights to the race officer, race director, whatever you want to call him, to put these elements in, which is the sausage, which is the different courses, which is the long distance race, which is a beach start or a beach finish. They're allowed to do it. But I was surprised at the amount of moaning done by the sailors that have already said, yes, okay to this. But now there's more on the line. They're like, well, hang on a minute. I'm not sure about this. I personally don't like that because there's more pressure then. And I understand why they do it because it's an unknown. They're adding an element, an unknown element. But at the same time, they're doing that discipline and they voted it in. And I think you've got to look at that. But I do understand it. And I understand people saying it's not a running race, it's a windsurfing race. It needs to be decided on the water. But if you voted in and it's part of the elements and you've okayed it,
yeah,
I think you've got to suck it up and do it. Like, it was a fun race, so it didn't make any difference. And even Amado, who won the race, went, it was okay for a fun race, but. But me personally, I grew up watching races like this. And this sticks out to me. I've been in races like this, Lancer and Ocean Classic. The only thing I will say is I think the race was a bit long, the running race. I don't think it needed to be all the way up the beach. I think you would have got more action and more video footage if there'd been a very short little, literally just up the beach, 10 meters or 15 meters or something, not very far at all. And then you could have kept the camera and filmed all the rest of the stuff because it is exciting. On a downside in Tenerife, where they came in, if they'd have done it where they were originally planning to do it, it was high tide and there's a big rock on the side. And I think it was a good job it didn't happen at the time it would have happened because there was a tiny bit of a shore break, which is nothing. But when you're leaving gear in the water and you've got 20 riders, that gear's got to go somewhere. So you do need space. You need a space to do it. And then, so like that, there you go. That sets the scene maybe.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, I thought that too. The problem was as well is that the finish line, because you had to run a fair bit up the beach, the camera person, like the attention was diverted away from the actual action.
That was
so because I remember you saying, don't get the camera angle so you can see what's going on because they'll follow. The camera was behind the runner.
I think you need it close enough to be able to film from behind the finish, looking at the water, but you're not too far away, so you can see all the stuff. Because the fun bit about these type of races is the people coming in behind. So you have the race happening in front of you, and then in the background you can see all the other stuff.
Well, I think you just have the drone in the air, and then you can see everything going on.
But that was the problem because the drone. The drone would have been perfect.
Yeah, but no, it's great to see the experimentation. Okay, some of these issues might have had teething problems, but from my point of view, why not try different things and see what works and what doesn't? I mean, because I noticed some of the comments on the live stream, there's sort of a camp that is just like, oh, this is not slalom anymore, and I want the old school slalom. And then there's the other half of the crew, they're like, no, we like the sausage. And there's a bit of toing and fro. Maybe it's not half and half, but you know what I mean? There's obviously two camps.
But I've thought about this. And I could be wrong, but I think most of the negativity comes from people who are cheering for a certain person. So these guys have got a vested interest in not too much changing and it being very suited to the people that are doing well already. Yep. Like, if you're a neutral, I don't see why you'd be negative against it. Like, to me, it's entertainment. And there's obviously a massive windsurfing element in a long distance race. you're going to have the fast guys at the front anyway. So you've got to give something back to the other riders. Like basically the slalom tour at the moment is built for big riders. And it always has been, apart from back in the day when weight jackets were allowed and there was, other things, custom boards and all this sort of stuff. But basically, if you're not big these days, you're not going to go as fast as the top guys. Maciek is probably the small frame guy who's doing the best. Like, he's had to bulk up and I think he's doing a good job. But, he is on the smaller side of the big guys. And you can see that if you look at the Water Speed app, they have this competition going in Tenerife, and you could see the fastest guys: Pierre Mortefon, Bruno Martini, Jordi Vonk. They are the fastest guys. So there's a massive advantage in slalom as it is if you're the fastest. Obviously, as soon as you make that course smaller, I mean, I don't want to go on about the indoor, but Matteo Yakin, no, but Matteo was in there and stuff, and I'm beating him. I'm not faster than Matteo, but I'm smaller, I'm more nimble, I can jibe good, So I think that's the idea of adding these elements, is to make it a little bit more skill-based rather than not totally down to speed. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and it also just adds an element of uncertainty, because you saw someone winning a heat and all of a sudden they go down on the sausage. Oh, okay, well, they would have won the event, the heat otherwise,
100%.
So...
And if you think about it from a media point of view, like people are moaning, there's no money in the sport, there's no this. And then as soon as the main sponsor, who's putting all the money in goes, we're going to do this, everyone's a bit like, ooh, you're thinking, hang on a minute. Like, you can't have it both ways. If what you're doing is not bringing in the money, you've got to be looking to understand what people want. And I can tell you now, if you have a normal slalom race and you have that race there and you offer both of them to the news, which one do you think they're taking?
Yeah, sure.
And which one is more beneficial to the sponsor? I mean, to me, it's like a no-brainer. Should it be every race? No, not at all. It should be a one-off race. And I was talking to him, maybe it could go down the Lancelin Ocean Classic route, where you do a one-off event where it is just a long distance race from all the way up in the harbour, which is higher than where we were, and the race is all the way down, and they finish running up to the hotel, because lower down there's Kite Beach, there's a big, more sandy beach, and you could have, helpers picking up the gear or whatever it might be. I mean, it works in Lancelin, and there's a lot of, there's over 100 competitors in Lancelin. And, don't get me wrong, the beach finish is literally 10 meters. 5. It's not far at all. It's close to the beach.
Yeah.
But it adds this real excitement. You always get a lot of people on the finish line.
Yeah, and it engages the people on the beach too. Right? Because a lot of windsurfing happens out at sea. People don't really always see it. Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's a beach start as well. If you're beach starting, all the crowd are there. They're like, oh my god, they get to see the riders. They get to see who's, and that's what's going to bring it closer to the people. Again, a lot of hardcore windsurfers will say, yeah, but you just do that on the water. You're like, okay, but you're missing this crowd connection. You're missing people getting up close and seeing these guys and really connecting with it. And I think if you don't see that, you are missing the point of it. And that is what they were doing, years ago with the beach start and all this, introducing the riders. You get with a beach start, again, there'll be a lot of people who say, oh, beach start, that's not fair. You're like, well, it is. But you might find that a different person is better at beach starts. Different equipment is better at beach starts. So is that good or bad? Well, it's nothing. It's just different. And that's not a problem. Like, just because it isn't the same old names doing it, you'll probably find it is the same names. But let's say it wasn't. Is that a bad thing? People have different skills. And at the end of the day, that is what should decide the champion. Now, again, Pierre Mortefon could come on the chat now and say, what a load of bollocks, Ben. It should be about slalom racing. And I'd go, yeah, okay. You're the world champ. I totally get it. But from a media point of view, do I want to see a race with a beach finish? Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I think it would benefit them all. It would get them closer to the people.
Yeah, and look, if you're on Instagram or any social media and you're seeing updates from those slalom events, often the highlight you would see would be someone going down on the sausage, or like we some. You always have to laugh when you talk about the sausage, isn't it? Because there's no way you can talk about it and not sound sus. But you know what I mean? Like it's people can watch a Formula One race, but the highlight you see is when there's the major pile up. You know what I mean? Like that's people want to see some carnage, or that's what gets people's attention. So those
what
elements.
About the Le Mans? Because people were complaining about this. Don't they run to their cars in the Le Mans race? I don't know, but I've seen it on the TV. Or they run to their bikes or whatever. I don't know. There's different play. It's not like it's a new concept where you're like, oh my God, these guys should be able to run. I mean, they're athletes. It's not like we're not testing their running. It's not like they're running like a marathon
400
or
meters.
running 400 meters. It's a little bit up the beach. Come on.
Yeah. Look, it's look, at the end of the day, if you know that you have to do a 10-meter sprint in the water, then you'll just incorporate that into your training. You would have thought, wouldn't you? I mean, you just go,
everything's trainable. Everything's trainable. And also, I think you have to remember is if you want to promote the fin, the benefit of a fin is you can do this.
Yeah.
You're not doing this with a foil. Wingers are not having a beach finish. And we want to get one over on the wingers. So
yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, you might as well play to your strengths. It's no, look, it's but your original question, how did you think it went? I mean, again, I thought it was good. I thought it was over all very quickly. By the time I was kind of getting into it, it seemed like it was over. So I was kind of hungry for more. But look, I just think it adds another element to the existing program, which makes it interesting. Obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously the broadcast of it needs to be sorted out. I mean, that's the big thing.
100%.
And once you've got that, what I thought was interesting too, just actually on that aspect of broadcast. I can't remember at what point in what event. It might have been the Tenerife event, but there was a WSL. That's the pro surfing tour for anyone who doesn't know, and they were at I think they're in Tahiti. I was in Tahiti. I was watching, like I had two screens on at the same time because there was a break in between eliminations, half an hour breaks. I was just checking both. But the interesting thing was at the height of some of your broadcasts, there was sometimes, I don't know, 1,200 people tuning in, or it could have been more, but that sort of number. We
had nearly 3,000 in Pozo.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Okay, up to 3,000 then. But the WSL, they had about 15,000. But keep in mind, they have like 1 or 2 million subscribers on their YouTube channel, whereas the PWA was around 20 odd, or 25 odd or something. So an absolute fraction number of subscribers. But yet windsurfing was doing, you know what I mean? Like the numbers were quite healthy considering the subscriber base. I thought that.
I've tried to explain this to people. Like I'm saying, like I think personally, windsurfing for the size of the market, we are kind of punching.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Our weight, like in terms of the amount of viewers we get from our, let's say, pool of windsurfers around the world that follow the PWA tour compared to something like surfing, obviously have massive, massive numbers. But comparably, their percentage of people that view it are smaller from the pool of surfers, which is, it is interesting to look at. Now, you'll hear different people say different things, but I genuinely believe that. I think when I look at when we have a good broadcast, let's use Fuerteventura as an example, and there's a lot of people saying, yeah, but we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. I think that's as good as it literally needs to be, because the extra bit and effort and money that it would cost to make it better is not proportional to how many more viewers we would get. And I don't think it will add that much. The percentage of increase of viewing pleasure wouldn't be as crazy. If we've got live interviews on the beach, we've got 2 drones, and it's good quality internet and, obviously a commentator, this is pretty bloody good, for what we're having to do. And then if, let's say, an outside sponsor comes in and goes, wow, this is good, we want to take it to the next level, fair enough. But I don't think to showcase us, it needs to have more money and more resources put into that. That is, I think, for the value proper, like for the value and what you get out. I think this is, for me, the balance. Maybe not everyone doesn't agree with that, but that's what I think. I think we should be putting effort into building up the national fleets, building up, like, this is where the energy needs to go to in windsurfing, is to build back up the national fleets, because they are the feeders for the main tour. And without those feeders happening, there isn't going to be a main tour, because these guys who buy the gear, who fund the windsurfing, fund the brands fund the riders. It's like this pyramid. And without the bottom of the pyramid just gets lower and lower until you've just got the triangle, and this is not going to work. So I think like we're already there, I think.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll say about the broadcast is assuming that you can keep that consistency that you had, because obviously if it was a big sponsor and they dealt with some of the issues, then that could be a bit of an issue, right?
But if you've got a big sponsor, you can have continuity, because a lot of these things happen. It's like people don't know sometimes. We had 3 different live crews for each event. So a different one in Pozo, a different one in Fuerteventura, a different one in Tenerife. And then obviously we had different editors for highlights. There was a different one in Tenerife to what was in Fuerteventura, and people have different styles of how they want to do stuff, and again, then you lose that continuity. So people start getting into what they like, and then it changes. And this is to do with local funding. They have to employ local people. This is how they can use their funds. And obviously, if you have to get a live stream crew flying in, and you've got to buy all the flights, accommodation, whereas if they live there on the island, you're already saving a fortune. So there's big costs involved.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned obviously the long distance, but I want to also mention the one that was done in Fuerteventura. I thought that was actually really cool to watch. What I thought was interesting about it too was in the usual slalom races, there was always the same kind of heavy hitters that tended to pull away from the pack. But on that long distance, it sort of wasn't quite the same. Like, for example, Nico was right up there, either 1 or 2 in both. There was 2 of the races, right? Was there 2 of them?
What I will say is, I think that has a lot to do with going out on port tack. And this has kind of made me think. So, a lot of the races in Fuerteventura were all coming in. So the start was coming in. So starboard tack, right hand at the front. And there's what you notice is some people are faster coming in than they are going out. So if you're fast on starboard and every starts on starboard, you're nearly first to the mark or second to the mark. You're in a good position, and then you've got clear water ahead of you. Whereas if we're starting more on port tack, maybe because you're going into the swell, usually this happens when everyone's already clear and there's already a bit of space. Whereas when we saw in the long distance and the first run was out, Nico, you could see Matteo as well, was super quick on the way out. Whereas actually on the way in, and I'm not saying these guys are slow, because they're not slow, but they were slower than some of the other guys. And those bigger guys, some of them didn't quite have it on the way out. And you could see the guys who got it down and was accelerating on the way out. I think this was kind of a big thing.
Yeah. Okay. And also, you asked the question about what I thought about the long distance. We've talked about it before, and it's easy said than done, because you've got limited resources on the beach with camera people and so forth. But one thing that I would love to see more of at these events is just the reactions of the sailors. I feel like that's sometimes missing a bit. They cross the finish line, great, and then you might hear from the winner 10 minutes later. By that stage, his excitement might have died down a bit, or her excitement. So I know, and I'm not saying it's easy to sort that out, because it takes a bit of. But the guy that who was leading and fell on the jibe because he crashed into someone and all of a sudden got kicked out. I want to hear what he has to say or she has to say, because they were probably coming up the beach, fuming. It's maybe not that pleasurable for them, but that's what engages people as well. Just the reactions. I think that in windsurfing events, that is probably the low-hanging fruit that needs to be looked at to just take it to the next level if you want to just get more drama into it or something. Yeah, it's because you know what it's like. I mean, you've done a lot more events than I have, but in the couple that I've been to, I was surprised how much drama is actually going on behind the scenes, which it doesn't translate to the broadcast because it's just not, the camera person's not there or something, and you sort of sometimes sitting there thinking, oh, I wish the people at home could see this, because it's almost like like it's quite exciting to see all the reactions and people, so that's
No, well, I agree. I totally agree.
I mean, it's easier said than done. I understand.
That actually is what brings you into the riders and the viewers.
Yeah.
And I kind of said it a few times. It's like hearing from the winner. It's boring.
It's always the same.
Because
it's always the same. They're happy.
Had a good start.
Yeah.
Got a good jibe. Stayed clear of the pack. They haven't been in the mix. Like the ones that have been in the mix are the ones fighting for that 4th place to qualify, or had a crash and didn't actually make it. The problem is, again, it's a little bit more to do with where do you fit that interview in, because the races pretty much start back to back, which is cool. But then you miss this because usually they get to the beach when they're in mid-race, because it's obviously they don't finish and then you can interview them. They sail down. Sometimes they go to a different part of the beach. They go and change their rig because they've had a mare or they've had a crash, so something's gone wrong. So you can't always find them. That's a big problem. But there's also only one person doing the interview, which is Sarah, doing all the social media. So I know, but I totally hear what you're saying, and that maybe goes back to what I said before about everything's perfect. That would be the addition that you'd make. More rider-led interviews with not just the winners, and trying to get a little piece from everyone. And that could be made easier by saying everyone in the top whatever, or anyone who's had an incident, should go report to a place where there is an interview thing ready to go, and it can just be a cameraman, and they can just say, it could be a standard question, what happened, and just let them talk.
Yeah. And obviously this is taking nothing away from anybody involved, including Sarah, because I know how much they work. They just, it's a hell of a lot of work, but it's just more a case of just something to really make it even more engaging, because it's like, for example, when you do the walk arounds with Alfie, there's some of the best time, like before the heat start. It's awesome because you get to meet the sailors. I mean, the regulars, Mateo and Matchek, you see these guys who have a bit of Sarakita, but there's obviously always new people on the scene. There's some younger kids, and it's always super interesting to hear them. And all of a sudden, oh, okay, now I've heard this name, but now I kind of know who it is. So,
and that is where, going back to the beach start, if it's possible, this is the type of stuff you do, because they're all lined up.
Yeah, you could just
and you could be like going, okay, you start to get this nervous feeling. And the same with the beach finish. If you have a beach finish, they have just, like, that was the cool thing. Like when they finished the long distance race and they'd run up the beach, they were knackered, but you literally can go bang, and this is another reason for a beach finish. It adds to that story I was saying before. If you can straight away, like, let's say the run is smaller, we've already covered that, but as soon as they finish the line, you're like, wow, congratulations, and they are like in the moment,
right there.
They're buzzing with adrenaline. They're like, and this is like media gold. Whereas they finish the race, they sail in, sometimes it's a long way, then they have to navigate the shore break, and you still get the moment, but it's definitely not as good as straight away running up the beach and dying on the floor, and you film all that emotion, and everyone's high-fiving or crying, and it's right there. And this is what people have to remember. We need something to sell an emotion. It doesn't matter of the sport. Emotion is the biggest seller. It's not we've got a cool fucking sport. The sport is epic. Like, the action is epic, but we need to transfer that emotion, because that's what's going to bring in the non-windsurfers to watching.
Yeah. Look, it's but again, it's hard, because obviously there's only so much to go around at these events. But it would be cool if we could get there, because I just know from my experience, it's a lot of fun, listening to the sailors, and they're quite animated, and a lot of them don't hold back. There's not, like in some sports, there's a political correctness, you have to be a bit careful what you say, but I don't know. The sailors, some of them don't mind speaking their mind.
Go on.
It makes it interesting. Huh?
So like you have the list of people who speak their mind.
Well, the thing is, I don't know too many again because I don't get to hear it on
Yeah,
the
but which ones
broadcast.
have you seen?
Well,
Like,
Bruno Martini. He seems to doesn't hold back, which is cool. Maciek seems to be pretty. Yeah, I mean, look, they all do to a degree, but I mean, those two stand out, I guess.
yeah, I agree.
But they all have something to say. I think even the guys like Tati and stuff, they're all pretty lucid. They just say whatever. It's just something that I'd love to see more of because it just makes the whole thing interesting. The other thing that I thought was interesting was at the start of these events, I looked at the entry list. And I thought, oh, there's only 20 sailors or whatever, whatever the number was. And I sort of thought, oh, it's not too many. But then I realized actually it kind of was good because you actually then started to get invested in all these people. Like you sort of got to know them somehow. We may have discussed this before, Ben, but I was just thinking there is something about having the creme de la creme at the top of the tree. They're the ones that get to compete for the world title. There might be a feeder system that comes into it that gives you the opportunity to enter these events. But I actually was worried that not having too many entrants would make it not as interesting. But it actually, I found it almost the opposite because you started to get to know, and it gave you guys the opportunity to actually interview all these people, and everyone at home could get to know all that, get to know them.
I think what needs to happen is, like you say, that feeder tour, because like if anyone can get into the PWA, it makes it less exclusive. So maybe, and again, not saying this is going to happen, but maybe there is a smaller amount of people that can get into the racing, which then helps build up the lower levels, because there needs to be this feeder tour, which maybe so many countries have a certain event which is qualifying for this overall point system. I know the guys have been trying to work with IFCA and trying to get stuff happening. So it is like in the wave sailing where everything has a point system. I don't know how close they are to doing that, but I feel like that would be a massive, massive step forward. And it does make a difference. Like, people shouldn't kid themselves. Having this point system, it's not going to be perfect, but there needs to be a coming together to help motivate all those, smaller events in different countries and help build them up. And then maybe one day they could come a PWA. But at the moment, there definitely should be a recognized tour, if that's what it is, using current events and a star system. I think that's the goal.
But
100%.
Yeah. And again, I think we talked about this on a private chat, Ben, but, just having, again, maybe easier said than done, but any event that runs around the world that has a racing element to it should count for something, it goes on a leaderboard. I mean, if you added all the racing events around the world from your local lake to just all of them, there would be thousands of sailors if you actually counted them all up, but you don't hear about it. And I mean, if you saw your name in lights because you came fifth in your local league and you only got a couple of points, but you ended up being, ranked 1400 in the world on this freaking leaderboard.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd get motivated. Oh, that's cool. I'm ranked 1400 in the world. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's a bit like the GPS speed thing, I guess, isn't it? I think that's a big part of the reason why that's successful, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I think obviously it's not easy to rank these type of events, but there's definitely a way to do it. It's racing. You can see the seeds that are there, the size of the event, and again, it helps motivate the events to get bigger. Because they're like, by having this event, we've got this, and this has got to this level. And I think that's definitely it. I think it's interesting to see events like Match X event, the Defi win, these long
that's a good example.
Events. These definitely have to have some sort of points attached to them. They're doing a good job. We need to help motivate these events to happen. So I think there's some good stuff happening. And there are people working behind the scenes, like always on this, and most of them are not getting paid. So, it's a full on thing.
Yeah, no, it's this sort of change happens pretty slow, but it'd be good to see it go in that sort of general direction. Also, I noticed again, if you've been following social media, there was a few posts from various sailors after Tenerife. They were, they weren't like there was one from Nico Preen saying he was a bit disappointed because there wasn't enough events, and like, did you see that post that he did?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it.
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I was a bit disappointed because
yeah.
I
What was
think,
all that about?
well, it's pretty obvious to me. Again, if I'm speaking out of turn, fair enough. But he had a lot to gain from racing.
Mm.
So obviously he's going to be like everyone. They have a certain side. I'm coming at it from a media point of view. I feel like I'm coming at it from an unbiased opinion, I would say, because I've got nothing to gain.
Mhm.
Matchek was the same. Matchek had everything to gain, nothing to lose. So he wanted to race. And they were out there trying to get the race on, which is fair enough. I spoke to Ben van der Steen, who is an ex-racer. He's been there, and he was on the boat doing the wind readings. And I said to him, what's the crack here? Because it was windy on the inside. I mean, it was pretty windy because I was like, what's going on? Why aren't we racing?
Mm.
And I think there was a couple of things. The long distance race, obviously, there was a world title and podiums on the line. It was uncharted territory, and they were having wind holes on the outside, which were dropping to 8 to 10 knots. And I think there was some of that was obviously that's lower than they would have liked. There is no wind minimum in Slalom X, but like other disciplines because of the way it's come about. So, but that's too light. The riders had already said they needed 15 plus or something like that for it to be an official race, and that was the guideline. So that was the main problem. But were they playing around? Could it have happened? Would it have been okay? Maybe, but it was more on the edge than not. Now, from a media point of view, I would have said, yeah, let's do it. But I had nothing on the line. And it was the race, committee's decision to make it fair racing. And it was by them, and they had to make it before 4 o'clock. And they were saying it wasn't fair until 4 o'clock. The wind wasn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
Might it have been for that one race when it happened, but they wanted to make sure the race happened. I think there is something to be said. And we used to have this on the national circuit when I was really young, like must be 30 years ago, 20 odd years ago. Whereas you'd start the official race, like a long distance race like this. And then if it became unsuitable or the wind dropped, they would put a flag up, which would mean it's now a fun race. So they don't cancel the race because it's a long distance race. A lot has gone into the effort, but they could just raise a flag and say, carry on, but it's a fun race. It's not going to count.
Yep.
Which in that scenario with that long distance race where they wanted to get something happening, but a world title was on the line, they could have done that. I think it's obviously not in the rules. I don't think they could have just done that, but maybe that is something to look at in the future, because then they could officially started it because it was good and they didn't have to cancel it. They could have just put this flag up. Everyone would have been happy down at the sponsors. They'd have got the race result. The world title wouldn't have been affected or whatever. And maybe there is something in that.
Yeah, okay. And then also just talking about some dramas, there was also in the wave side of things, what was going on there? Because there was a single elimination, and then certain sailors, I guess, weren't happy with their position, so they're pushing for a second. But then there's juniors and masters to get through, a touchy subject. But
so to me, it's not touchy. I think it's really clear, and I'm coming at it from I had no skin in the game. I wasn't in the Masters fleet. I wasn't in it, but I've been in it, and I know how it feels. When you're in the Masters fleet, you're literally entering that event knowing you're the lowest of the low. You're the last on the list to get conditions. You will get the scraps, basically, because you're an addition. You don't have to be there, but they've started to bring it back. And I think it's really cool. But you got to remember, there's masters out there. There's some established sailors in that Masters fleet. A lot of them have been around a long time and seen lots of stuff. They've been on the PWA before, but they know the deal. So the problem we had with Tenerife, like I said before, was just the forecast. You're trying to juggle slalom and wave. Now, the priority in the wave has always been pro men, pro women. pro women, pro men, whichever order. But that is the priority. They need to get a result. That's 100% the priority. I totally agree with that. It's a PWA event. They are the priority. And then adding on to that, obviously, the youth was the first one to come. And it showed having the youth in these events has been huge. It's like pushed a lot of young guys and girls into the sport. It's been amazing over the years. Now we're seeing them, Marino Gill, Liam Dunkerbeck, have gone from 12-year-old kids to now winning PWAs, podiums. It's proved that having these kids at the event and motivating them with a live stream and all that stuff has been amazing. But the problem is there's only so many hours in a day and only so many windy conditions you get. So anyway, pro men, pro women get priority. They do their single elimination. It's a great final. Probably the best conditions we'd had the whole week were in that final. The best riders got to that final. And like in all competition, you have to perform in that heats, in those days. That's what sport is about for me. It's not about keep going until everyone gets to where they should be. It's about delivering in that moment when it counts. That's what sport is all about. It always has been. 100-meter race, Olympics, 4 years for one race. If you get a bad start, they don't say, oh yeah, but we're going to do that again because Usain Bolt had a bad start and he is the best, but he didn't win. So we're going to do 3 more. You don't do that. You do one moment, bang. So they have the event. I think worthy winner. Everyone who watched it, Mark Paré killing it. You've got, Brasinho probably didn't have his best final, and as I heard him say to someone else, he goes, you know what? I'll take it because if I'd have had that heat outside of the final, I'd have been even deeper. So he goes, if I'm going to have a bad heat, I'd rather have it in the final, even though it's hard to take. You're better to have that heat there than not in the semis. Anyway, so the results come out. Now, the forecast of the week was meant to be, it started to look like the forecast was going down. So they had to push pretty hard to get this single in. And I think they did a good job. So then as it looked, there was 2 days left. Penultimate day, which had the forecast changed and it looked great. But we still had the under 15s, under 18s, under 21s and masters to go. It was going to take 5.5 hours to finish it. Perfect. They are going to score, though, because the conditions for this day, the forecast is looking great. And they haven't been yet. They've been waiting patiently. Some of them are in the main fleet. Fair enough. But not all of them. Some of them have took time off work. They've booked in. They booked this ages ago. And they've told their friends. They've told their sponsors because it's not like they're not sponsored. They've still got deals and stuff. So they're all excited thinking, wow, we didn't even think we might not even go sailing or we're going to sail in rubbish. Now we're going to have a really good day. Wow, it's going to be pretty cool. And then the last day was obviously looking like a slalom day because they still needed to do this long distance race and finish. So it was kind of like, okay, it couldn't be better. From a dodgy forecast, it looks like we are going to nail it. We're going to have the men, pro women sorted. We're going to get all these categories and the final long distance race. Easy. Not quite so easy because the night before, they started to get a bit of momentum from a few of the sailors who were knocked out or who were maybe in positions which they thought, I don't want to finish this event in this position. I want to have a chance to come back up, which means they have to sail the double elimination. The way the forecast was looking, it wasn't probably going to happen. To run the double elimination, I think it's like 10-something hours. So it probably wasn't going to happen in one day. But this started to get some momentum. Quite a few of these riders turned up at the briefing, like the skippers meeting the next day, and was pushing very hard rule books and all this stuff. Like basically, the pros should get priority over everyone else because it's a pro event. Again, now you can look at that. I get it, and as some people said, this is their livelihood. These are pros. This is what it all comes down to. So you could look at it like that and say, fair enough. They're pushing for their own livelihood, this is their business. This is everything. The masters and the juniors are not there yet. But the problem I had is these guys haven't even been yet. How can you stand there and say they shouldn't even have a go and we should have a second go? And this was where it went. In the end, they run a few junior heats. In the end, the under 21s didn't get to run and the masters didn't get to run, and they started the double elimination. Now, we all know in hindsight, was that a good decision or a bad decision? Some people came back through the double, but then we are halfway through a double. So it does count, but none of the top places were affected. And actually it made quite a lot of people equal on points because the way the double works, you know, some benefited from it. Baptiste, you know, Cruek, who maybe just, you know, went out early and he was upset with that anyway. And he made a good comeback. Fair play to him. A couple of other people made a comeback. Ricardo actually dropped back. You know, a few people dropped back. And my question with the double elimination, and again, this is open to everyone who's out there who understands how it works. Is it fairer to run a double elimination? Like, and this has always been my point. Now we've got 4-man heats where 2 go through. It is much fairer, the single. It's not totally fair, but it means if you've got Costa, who could be the top seed, or Mark Bray in this early round, and he's in your heat, you can still get second. It's not all over like it used to be. Used to be you'd have man-on-man heat. I was getting Costa a lot. There was a period where I was sailing my best, and I would get Costa in the second round every time, man-on-man. And I was beating the other 2 people in the heat, but I was losing to Costa. So that was unfair, and you needed the double to come back. With the 4-man heats, with a push time, which we had, the single is not as unfair as it is now. Yes, you've got to sail well. You've still got to beat people. That's competition. But the problem is the double now fairer or just different? Because a lot of the time, the guy who wins against someone in the single elimination and beats them, they could have them in the double, and the guy who they beat in the first round could beat them in the double. And then you're like, well, he just beat you on a different day. Is that because he's better, or is it because it's a different day? It's like, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I think for the back guys, they get another go. I think it's nice. But realistically, we're trying to find the top of the top, and the top guys have pretty much sailed against each other. So who was the best on that day? On this time, it was Marc Paré. He was the best. If you did it on another day and he gets beat in the double, is that because they're better? They're better on that day. And it's like,
yeah, I know. It's,
you know what I mean?
It's a
very difficult situation. And I don't get me wrong. I like the double. It's exciting. Someone comes back through. It's very confusing for the outside media. And but I don't think it's fairer, because you're not in the same conditions. You're not on the same day. It's just a different result, which another good rider on this day could be sailing better and he's going to win. But if it obviously wasn't good enough on the day before. So you're like, well, is it better? I don't know. I don't think it's better. I think it's just different. And again, it's not bad or good. It is just different, and it's exciting. But I don't think it makes a fairer result. That was my kind of argument.
But obviously, when this decision was made to run the double, from what I could tell from the outside looking in, there was a few frustrated sailors in the youth and the masters. Was it? You know, so what was the scene? What was the scene at the event? Was there a bit of
to be fair?
tension,
I was one who spoke up a little bit at the skippers, because I was like, look, it's just because you've lost. You know, like for me, if you it wasn't really negative around it. Everyone was, you know, whatever. But, you know, there's a lot of youth and junior sailors who are not going to speak out. I even heard Samuel Ferraro, who's in the under-21s, basically say, I think it's more important we do the pros. And he's in the under-21s. So, you know, when you've got people like that, it wasn't just a total landslide one way or the other. Me personally, I'm obviously coming at it from a more... The masters are people too, man. You know, like the under-21s. There was a comment on Ricardo's post from you know, Bem from the Czech Republic and the under-21s, and you know, it's pretty emotional post, and I think he laid it out as he was feeling it. He didn't hold back. He basically wrote to Ricardo, because obviously Ricardo had a lot to gain. He wanted to do the double, and that's fair enough. But you know, Bem, who was there, who had entered this event, he'd been working hard to earn the money to get to Tenerife, to have the under-21s chance to, you know, maybe get on the podium or to push into his best result. He didn't get the chance. And he wrote to Ricardo, it's on a comment on Instagram. So, you know, it's not like I'm telling any secrets here. It was in public. And it was basically like the gist of it was, you're dead to me. You know, you used to be my hero. Now you've killed any illusion I have, because you've basically stopped me having my chance by pushing to get the double elimination sailed. And again, like I said, there are different arguments that I've tried to lay them out, but that's generally how he was thinking. He spent all this time and money and effort to get there to do this competition. They were going to have a chance, and then it was taken away from him to resail some of the heats. And then to add salt into the wound, Ricardo obviously lost in his double elimination heat. So that I kind of mentioned it on the live stream at some point, because it was, you've seen this post from this Czech guy, Czech youth, and he must have been thinking the same. Like, what, all this effort and pushing out us guys. The Masters obviously were a bit upset because they wanted to sail. But again, as I've heard people say, it's a pro event. The juniors, the Masters are an add-on. I was trying to say, if that's the case, then that needs to be clearly stated. And if you've allowed them to enter, you've got to give them the chance before people get a second chance, would be my take on it. Again, that's just a personal opinion. But I understand the pro side of it. I personally don't buy into that, but I understand what they're saying.
Yeah. And learning something from this whole experience, do you think it's still the right way to go, where you mix all these divisions in the one event? Or do you think they should just go, there's a pro event and then there's the rest over here? Or...
This is getting into it, because this is what I was kind of saying at the briefing. I didn't disagree with them. I'm just saying, once you allow them in, you've got to give them equal opportunity to have their go. Once everyone's had their go, your priority goes straight back to pro men, women. And my argument with those guys is like, don't moan now. Now the forecast is good for a day and they're going to have their chance. You should have been moaning at the beginning of the week, hey, this is not fair. You can't have all these, that needs to be said, not even at the beginning of the week, need to be said before. But once you've allowed them in and you've took the money, you've got to give them the equal share. They're already signing up to have sail in the rubbish. So now when they've got good conditions, don't take it out from under them. But I think, going back to what you said, should it be separate events? Maybe. Should it be different time periods? Maybe. The problem with that is, as we know in windsurfing, let's say we split it and we say, okay, there's 3 days for juniors and masters, and there's a week for the pro men and women. You know what's going to happen.
Fire. Yeah.
The first 3 days are going to be firing. The pros are going to go, oh, but if we had a 10-day event, we could have sailed in that and you could have sailed in this. And this will always be the problem. But I do think having separate time periods, maybe it doesn't make sense because of how windsurfing is. You could get all the conditions in 5 days and you might miss but it does make sense in the sense of it would be easier to manage, because you're like, okay, this is your window. Whatever you get, you get. This is your window. Whatever you get, you get. And maybe that's what happens.
Yeah. And I do understand why you're trying to do it all together, because you've got the infrastructure there. You've got the live stream team. You've got the tents. You got all that stuff. So, there's a limited budget to go around to do everything proper. You know what I mean? Like to have a whole separate event. But yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think, what's going to stop this sort of issue happening again?
I think the only way, and again, it's not perfect, as I just said, but maybe it is the first 3 days are masters and juniors, because then there's no problem. You use all the infrastructure. So maybe it's the first days or something. Yeah. And, you're in the Canaries, you're unlucky if you don't get conditions. It's, Pozo, for example, or something like this. And then that would, how much effort you could put in. And then you would have this week for the pros where you could pick the conditions. You could, because what happens is the judges, when they're judging juniors, youths, and then you're switching straight to pro men, it's pretty difficult to get scales. There's a lot of concentration going on. Yeah. So again, that is going to be talked about. I'm pretty sure this type of thing is going to be talked about and tried to iron itself out, because we did see how it didn't quite work as it would have worked. I think it would have been perfect. And the head judge had already made the decision that he was going to run the youth and the masters on that day, and it would have been perfect. And yes, there would have been a few unhappy pros that lost, but they were unhappy anyway, I think, because most of the ones that were having their say actually didn't get to go sailing anyway, because we only got through to halfway through the double.
And look, it's pretty obvious, you've the juniors, they're the next generation coming through. So you want to have a platform for them to perform. Yeah. But what about the masters, Benny? You're a master, you were the champ, weren't you, last year, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
But But what, like, is that? I mean, how many?
But this goes back to what you're just saying now. It's like,
Yeah.
should we, and I'll put me in this because I have got skin in the game here because I am a master and I like competing in the masters. I think it's really fun. Should it be mixed in with the pros? And this goes back to what I just said. I would probably quite happily sign up for an event on the side. I don't need to be in with all the pros because you always get in these. I would rather take my risk that we might get conditions in those 3 days than be trying to be edged on the side of all the other stuff, if that's possible. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because the reason I say that is because I can't think of too many events. Let's just take surfing, for example. You know, when they do a WSL event, they're not running juniors and masters and everything all at once, you know. So obviously it's quite a logistical challenge to get through everything, you know. As much as you'd love to, you know.
There's not enough resources. Like, you know, we're doing it, but I can tell you now, like I said, Pozo, it was it was hard going. It was hard going. And everyone made it happen. Everyone butted in. But when you've got like 3 10-day events like that, it's you know, it's almost too much. So it is a lot. And they have to think about, like, either they need to expand on the teams, because same with judging. You know, it's not like if you have a day off, then you've got more in the tank for the next day. It doesn't work like that. You know, like people said, oh yeah, but you just had a day off. You're like, yeah, but it doesn't mean I could go for 20 hours now. You know, like there's only so much capacity you can kind of handle. And I think it's the same with the judges, with concentration. So it will be interesting to where it goes. But I do think the masters and the juniors have definitely been an add-on. Do you need the masters? Well, you don't need them. But I would say in windsurfing, it's probably the biggest category of potential. And we're the ones that spend the money. I say we, but if I look at myself in other sports, the masters usually bring the juniors as well. So maybe there's an argument to be saying there should be a youth and masters competition, because that makes sense. If you're a master, like the Gobish family, you know, Lars Gobish won the masters single elimination in Pozo, and he had daughters, sons in all the categories in the youths. I mean, that's a classic example of how those two fit together.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Yeah, but look, I don't have a particular answer to this, but it just seems, looking from the outside in, there's a lot going on in an event, and it seems like every time there is an event, it's a struggle to get through all these heats. It seems to be a recurring theme. It's sort of like,
but again, you can ask as well, like, should it be live streamed? You know, have we got the capacity to live stream all these categories? And again, from the masters, I don't mind if I'm not live streaming. I'm not super fast. I enjoy I don't get me wrong. I think it's good, and there are masters getting sponsorship deals. You know, it's a thing. But if there's a video, if people are, you know, highlights video, I'm happy with that. I don't need to be live streamed, because I know. But once you've got the live stream there, but then the live stream crew are pushing to the limits, you know, in the time where they could have like a bit of a break, they're just more and more. So it's going to be difficult to get around it. But I think there will be some separation.
Yeah, okay. And now, obviously, moving forward, we've got the next event. Actually, what is the next event? Because it's obviously depending on what you're into. Is Silt essentially the next event?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. I actually haven't looked.
I'm just having a look.
I should know, shouldn't I? But Silt is definitely the one on the PWA. Yeah,
I noticed, obviously, with the Slalom X, that champ has been, those champs have been announced. But in the waves, that's super. It's a Pare and
Brasinio.
Yeah, they're level, aren't they? Yeah. So actually, there's a youth. So talking about youth, there's a youth event that happens in Denmark that's coming up, and then it's Silt. Yeah. So
I mean, I will say this was the argument of some of the pro riders, just to add a fully thing, that they were saying, look, they've got their own competition. They've got their own world title. You know, they've got these other competitions coming up in other places, which is why they should have the priority. But again, that goes back to what I said about, well, don't let them in if you're not going to let them go sailing, you know, until you. So it is difficult. Not an easy situation. But again, we'll have to watch this space to see how it gets resolved. But there is obviously talk that, okay, we've found some sticky points with having just saying yes to all these categories. There's got to be a point where it's slimmed down again a bit until resources or stuff get a bit bigger.
Yeah. What did you think out of all the different racing that happened? You know, because at Fuerte there was a variation on the sausage. Sometimes the sausage, sometimes not, or it was put in different areas. Then we had long distance racing. Then we had the Tenerife on the beach. I mean, out of all those different variations, what was the one that sort of stood out for you as a was there one particular one where you thought, oh,
I mean, just in terms of conditions, like Fuerte was extreme. You had some of the best guys in the world and they couldn't even jibe at some moments. Now do not look at that live stream and think, oh, look at these guys. For them guys to not be able to jibe sometimes, that means it is so insanely hard, you won't even comprehend it. It's ridiculous. So when they were coming in and Pierre's coming in saying that's the most difficult I've ever sailed Fuerte, that was extreme. So when you're trying to jump sausages, and that's what I like this, like you say, uncertainty. When you've got like the hardest condition challenging the top riders, and it is like survival of the fittest, literally. I love that because you never went, okay, it's over. You never went, it was over. And obviously we had good coverage there. We had 2 drones, which makes a big difference to the viewing pleasure. And it makes a big difference to what I see. So I could see literally every detail. And so Fuerte for me ticked all the boxes of, if you're going to show someone an event, and it was the same the year before, you know, what is Slalom X? What is slalom racing? Should we get involved? You know, give us a little glimpse of what it's like. I think if you cut out some of those races with the commentary, with everything, there was some really exciting, like edge of your seat. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I don't think you get better than that. You know, I think Tenerife had it's got the conditions to be that. I think the long distance race, obviously, you know, if we could have get it filmed properly because it's such a long way away. There's little elements like this. I like all the elements. I'm a big fan of actually Slalom X, and I know not everybody is because you read some of the comments, but I have a feeling those guys are a little bit biased because they've spoke to some of the riders, I won't mention any names, who have been battling against it, Cedric Board. You know, like he has been wanting just slalom. And I do get that. He's saying it's pushing people away at the lower level or at the P2A level, but I personally don't agree with that. And I'm not saying he's not right. It's just my personal opinion that isn't what's happening here. There isn't the base to push the top. It's not that the top is scaring people off. I think there's a lack of money, a lack of sponsorship. Let's be honest, you know, and it's happening not just in windsurfing, it's happening everywhere. So now where you looked at the top guys before and you went, wow, these guys are rock stars. They're living the dream. They're, you know, and that's kind of when you're a kid and you look at these guys, you are looking at that whole, what are they doing? How, you know, what's it like to be a pro rider? Whether you realize you're doing it, you are looking at them, you know, Bringdale driving around his Porsche back in the day.
Ferrari,
you know,
they had a Ferrari
or whatever, you know. And you're looking at them like they're partying, they're doing this, and whatever turns you on as a kid, I don't know, you know. But I don't think you're just looking at the racing going, oh yeah, you are, but you've also got to put it. And then if you're speaking to these pros and they're, you know, struggling with sponsorship, Pierre Mortefon, you know, Phantom, you know, pulls out and stuff like this, it's not that like hard to see it. And then when you've got IQ Foil, which has got an easy pathway and there's money from governments and Olympic medal type money, it's much easier to see a pathway. So I think that's more the problem. I think we've got to work on those national fleets, build them up, and that will naturally build to the top layer. But I think for me, Slalom X is super watchable. Like, well, you come from a non-racing background, and like I've spoke to you since you started following it. You're getting into it. You're like looking forward to the next one, which is all you can ask for. When you're like, when's the next one? What? It's not till still, you know, you're upset with that. That's good. That means people want to see more of it.
Yeah, I think racing for me was actually probably more engaging than watching Pozo, the wave stuff. Even though the wave stuff is super extreme, super high doubles and all that, but there's something about racing that is just for the simple man's mind where you don't have to think too much. You can just sit back and it's all pretty straightforward. The first across the line is the winner. There's no judging and like all this sort of stuff. So I think from a viewer, sit back and just relax kind of thing, you can't really beat that. I mean, in any form, isn't it? Racing and whatever sport, it's always a popular type of thing.
But I will ask this because I've tried to figure out this. I think racing is great because the story unfolds right in front of you, and it's what, 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes. It's like intense. You see it happening, and then it's like bam, 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 bam. Whereas wave sailing, you've got 13 minutes, and the story really only gets told at the end. So you've got a lot of build up. It's like the long story, and then you get all the jumps, and then it comes down, and then the time pressure. That last couple of minutes in wave sailing is like, okay, he's got this score. This guy's got this score. He needs to do a double to stay in. And then you start to go, ooh, but it takes quite a long time to get to that. So unless you're into windsurfing and you like seeing windsurfing, that excitement factor doesn't happen enough. Whereas in slalom, even if you're not into racing, you're not into windsurfing, you straight away go, we've got 8 guys, got 2.5 minutes. They're going to go round that, finish. Here we go. And you're like, oh, fucking hell. It could be whatever. It could be anything on the water. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's easy. It's definitely easy to understand. I mean, I think with the wave thing too is with slalom, as long as you got enough wind for planing, then it's happening. With the wave sailing, it's so variable to the conditions. It could be ankle high to double mast. Obviously, so it's very hinging on the conditions as well as to the people's interests. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're both exciting. But yeah, but as you said, I wasn't really so much into racing. I don't have any slalom gear at all. But it's certainly easy to watch. Actually, you mentioned something before too that I wouldn't mind just quickly touching on. This kind of another interesting talking point. But Phantom as well. Obviously a bit of a controversy there. Yeah. Can you elaborate a bit what happened there? Or
well, I don't know the total ins and outs, but I mean, it's been pretty well documented in official press releases and stuff. So to be a member, like the PWA happens because brands basically pay money. It's a bit like Windsurfing TV. What I do, it's a membership. So they pay a certain amount of money per year. And then the benefits for that brand are they get to use all the pictures, they get to use all the press, they get to, feature in the videos, they get all that stuff, they get official titles, and that money helps run the PWA. That's basically how it is. Now, there have been different systems over the years, and it used to be that how big your brand was, you'd pay a bit more. So the big brands, like say back in the days, Fanatic would pay quite a lot. Starboard, they'd be up there. We're one of the big brands having all these things, and they would pay a certain amount. And then if you were a smaller brand, they introduced a smaller fee because maybe you've only got one rider. And this has been trying to change. They've been trying to find a balance over the years. And as far as I know, that changed a few years ago to a results-based system. So if your riders, and I hope I'm right on this, I'm pretty sure I am, that if you got a good result, you would pay a certain amount of money, or you go into different tiers. So in theory, if you start winning, you're going to get more publicity, you're going to do better. In theory, you're going to sell more stuff. That was kind of how it was viewed. Again,
can't hear you, Ben. Sorry, man. I'm not sure if it's just everyone. Can anyone hear Ben? I can't hear him. Still cannot hear you. Could someone write in the comments if they can hear Ben? Maybe it's just me. Can you hear me, Benny? Now you're on mute. No, you're on mute. You got to unmute your mic there, Benny. Yeah, you've muted your microphone, Ben. Can you see that? Oh, still can't hear you, mate. We've lost Benny. Benny's trying to work it out. Oh, no. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. We've lost him. Ah, we were just listening about Phantom. Oh, okay. Well, let's just while Ben's trying to work that out, if anyone has any comments about nope, still can't hear you, Benny. Sorry, mate. If anyone has any comments about what we've just been discussing, what did you think about it all? Did you like the long distance? Slalom X, the sausage? What did you think? Was there anything there that you thought was good, could be improved? No sound from Ben. Benny's gone. It's a solo podcast. He'll be back. Oh, here he is.
Hello.
Oh, you're back.
Is it working? No. Yes.
Yeah. I can hear you now, mate.
Okay. Sorry, it's just this stupid road mic went on.
Oh, well, I just asked anyone to add a comment. So I'm not sure if they'll do that. But anyway, you were sort of talking about Phantom.
Where did I get to?
About PWA, they've got to pay a membership number. Big brands have got to pay a bit more. Smaller brands,
and then it changed to results based. Did you get that bit?
Yep.
Yeah, so it changed to result based, and if you do well, the theory is you get more publicity, you sell more stuff, so you can pay a bit more money, and that's kind of how it went. And then obviously, it sounds like there was Phantom didn't pay, and then they were like, okay, don't worry. They have to be pretty flexible in the windsurfing industry. And then this obviously went on too long, where he was giving excuses, or he wasn't paying, he was going to pay, he didn't pay. And then obviously there's a point where you go, okay, enough is enough. You're getting this publicity, you're sharing it on your social medias of whatever, but you're not paying us any money. So we have to say, look, and if you don't pay by this date, then you can't use your gear in the PWA. And that is literally where we got to.
Yeah. Okay. But this was going on for a few years, was it?
Well, apparently, I read on the press release, didn't it say something like has unpaid things for 2 years or something like this?
Yeah.
And again, I think it dragged on because of the way this system changed. So maybe they were trying to argue this, and then it's like, you know how it goes when someone owes you some money. You're like, they're going to pay, don't worry. And then you get to a point, you start to get a bit angrier, and then you're like, okay, that's it. And it sounds like it went on too long. The line should have been drawn a bit earlier.
So basically, Phantom, I mean, they've now are exited now as a member. So basically, unless something changes, we won't be seeing them.
No,
again.
And I've had quite a few emails from people asking me, like, again, I don't know the full deal with Phantom. It's like, I've ordered a sail, Ben, do you think I'm going to get it? Because now the website's saying it hasn't got any, and people are getting very spooked, which is fair enough. There's also a worry if they're stopping with the PWA, are they going to still keep producing their foils? Because a lot of foils have different fittings. People have spent $8-9 grand on a foil set, and they're like, hang on a minute, is what's going on? So there is a lot of unanswered questions. I can't speak for Phantom. I'm not Phantom, but I can imagine there'd be a bit of a worry in the marketplace, let's say. And I can't comfort you because I generally don't know. Maybe someone out there knows more than me.
Because it's an interesting story because they were at the front of the fleet, with Pierre. They obviously make good gear. Although obviously Pierre's gone to Neil Pride and he continued his winning there. So didn't seem to hurt him too much, but it's an interesting story. Yeah.
The interesting thing with that is it actually probably worked out really well for Pierre in the end. And don't get me wrong, it would have been stressful. It was not what he wanted. He's got a new family that he's providing for, and then you get this news. He's obviously injured in the Deafy Wind, so injured coming into Fuerteventura. And then he gets the news that he can't use the sails. And then apparently him and Finian went through the rule book and found the moment which saved sort of Pierre a little bit, because it said, the notice of race had already come out, and basically Phantom were already in at that point. So then you couldn't say he couldn't race because it was already in the notice of race. So there was a little loophole there, which then meant that Pierre could use the Phantom stuff for Fuerte, which Fuerte being howling windy and he was used to it, fit really nicely. Because the rumor is, again, I've not used Phantom, so I don't know. The sails haven't got as much low end, but we're really good in the high end. Again, this is just what I'm hearing. And then obviously then going into Tenerife, the notice of race is out. You can't use Phantom. So he had to change. So then he was waiting to see what would happen. Neil Pride stepped in and said, look, we'll lend you the sails. I mean, you could say good Samaritans, or maybe this potential world champion and the best in the world is going to be using your sails. I think it was a win-win situation for both parties. But the thing with the Neil Pride is their low end is good. And Tenerife, being a, maybe lighter wind venue, actually worked out very nicely. It definitely wasn't planned, but I think it worked out pretty well.
Good lucky.
And the thing will be is where he goes now. What happens now? Because Neil Pride were very clear in their statement that it's not a sponsorship. We're just lending him the gear, or maybe they gave him the gear for that race. Maybe that was the deal. I don't know. But it was really clear that we want you to read this press release. It's not a sponsorship deal. There's no proper sponsorship deal happening here. We are just helping him out. What does that mean? Does it mean someone else, Antoine Albo's not on the team anymore? Does that maybe open the door? Does it put riders that are already on Neil Pride under pressure? Because obviously Pierre is a big fish. Or do they find the extra budget to put him on? And these are questions which will be interesting.
Max asks, I'm not sure if you can divulge, but Max asked the question, how much is the membership fee per brand? Is that something that you can...
I don't know the official numbers on this. I think, and this could be a total stab, but it's between, which is a big amount, between maybe 2,000 and 6,000, maybe, depending on I seem to know sort of numbers like that. Obviously, that could have changed, but this was a long time ago, depending on how big the brand was.
Okay.
But that just give you an idea. So, it's not 20 grand. It's not 500. It's in that bit, I think.
When sailors, how does it work in the paddock, Ben, with the sailors and the sponsors? So, you're on, I don't know, 0.7 sails, but then the sailor next year is on Neil Pride or something like that. Is how much of that changing over brands is done? Like is it sort of like you're in a tent and you say, Amado's talking to the guy from Neil Pride. What's going on there?
Well,
is a lot of that goes on, or is it? Okay, but is it all fairly?
I saw Finian talking to a few people.
Okay, yeah. So, but is it all?
Finian sounds like he's back. So FMX, it'll be interesting to follow that. But he seemed pretty motivated. And there are people. Usually, it used to happen in Silt, Germany. So all the big brand managers, Martin Bradner from JP, they would have like Craig Gertenbach was Fanatic, and this sort of, just to give you an idea, what I always remember, Sven Rasmussen, would be there, and they'd be, you'd see him go, oh yeah. Be chatting down the, Sarah Keita, or they would have a little chat, and you'd be like, something's going on here. Because that would be when it would happen, like that September, October, couple of months before the end of the year, finalizing things. Do you want to come? Is it worth it? And that would be when a lot of the deals are happening. Nowadays, you don't hear about it as much because maybe there is a little bit less money in it. So those deals don't seem to be as fluid, they've got one good rider and it's like, well, that's enough. Like before there was a proper team of lots of riders. Now the teams are definitely slimmed down. And there's less action in that transfer market. Obviously, with Johan moving to Patrick last year, and Andrea Cookie on 0.7, that's a big gap. So you've got to fill it. So when I was in Japan, we were chatting about potential riders to fill that gap. So, that was happening in Japan time, which is that type of end of the year. So it obviously happens, but I don't think it happens as much. It's definitely less. And I keep saying this, but I do believe it's down to that national series, because if you're a top racer now and you're seeing Amado Vrieswijk now, in the Finn go to second in the world, you're like, he's changed sponsors on 0.7. Are people thinking, well, I'm going to buy a new 0.7 because I want to go faster in the racing? But if your national fleets are smaller, who's buying these race sales? Like you need someone to be looking at the racing. Like we watch it, and I'm sponsored. You're obviously not into racing, but you're watching it as a spectator. But you're not going to go out and buy a new race sale. You're not that much into racing at the moment. So realistically, what the brands need are potential racers or free racers that are watching, and that's transferring into sales. And that is obviously the whole premise behind the PWA. It's why you pay more for good results, because that brand, in theory, has that knockdown effect to the consumer.
Yeah. Okay. Also, before you're mentioning about this storm chase slalom idea, one thing I would like, and if anyone else wants to throw their comment in, please do. But I remember growing up on events like Almanar and Aruba, and these sorts of events where the water was actually quite flat. I would love to see a slalom event done on really nice flat water, because one of the memories I have of those events is Bjorn going into the jibes at 1,000,000 miles an hour and just laying the sail down and exiting at almost the same speed he entered the thing. Whereas obviously with all these it is hard to get a really full speed sort of jibe. So that's the other thing. I think having this kind, like imagine having this.
Be careful what you wish for, because imagine
Tell me, Ben.
eight riders, butter flat. Surely the race is going to be over after the first mark.
Yeah, okay. So there is that, I guess.
That's the only problem. But don't get me wrong, I agree, because that was what I looked at. And maybe I'm just so into it now. I'm all about the excitement of the racing, but maybe there is something in just selling the beauty of.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm not saying every event. So it would be nice to see, but throw a few sausages in there and let them jump.
And that's when you talk about making the jibes more important. So the legs shorter, so it's not just speed. And if it is easy to jibe, make there more jibes, because then you have to plane fully. Especially if it's windy. If it's not windy.
Yeah. I mean, look. Anyway, but no, that's exciting. It'll be interesting to see if we do get that sort of storm chase slalom thing. That'll be super cool. A couple of comments here. I did ask while you were trying to work out your mic. We've got Liz Jones here. Said Fuerteventura was perfect. Slalom is the best to watch. Need to make more of the drone and head cams and Insta360s, as the close-ups are really exciting. El Medano was unlucky not getting the wind. I'm imagining you're going to say that the head cams and Insta360s are easier said than done, probably, for a live stream.
For live stream, I think it's not a good idea. But because the perspective is really difficult. You can't commentate. Like if I commentated it already, and then you did the video to the commentary, yes, it would definitely work. But to be able to commentate, you need to have a picture of what's happening. And as soon as you go to head cam, you lose perspective. So it's very hard to make the story and build the tension with the other riders. You just go, okay, we're on board with whatever now. And as soon as you'd come up, you'd be like,
what's going on?
Keep it flowing. If I could still see the race, that might work, but it is difficult. I mean, I think for highlights, definitely, or highlights even in between the races, if you could get a live connection. But as you saw with the drone, with the 4G connection in Tenerife, it didn't work with that 4G connection. It just looks so bad quality compared to the normal camera. You just noticed it far too much, in my opinion.
Actually, talking about all that too, maybe you can. It's probably. You guys talk about it, I don't know, but when I watch the live stream with the drone guys, I think they're getting really good shots now. You can tell that the person flying the drone is they know what they're doing, but there's still a tendency to not understand that in a lot of these heats, it's the top four that go through, and where the exciting battle is the fourth and the fifth. You know,
Yeah.
so you'll see the drone just following first, second, and third, and
Yeah.
you can see behind that. Oh, these guys are tangling at the mark.
Yeah.
You're like, get over there. That's what we want to
Yeah.
see. And I know it's tricky
It's difficult.
because no, I get that, but it's just I think it's just getting that. You know, that's the battle,
drones.
isn't it?
Literally
Yeah.
2 drones like we had
Yeah.
in Furta.
Yeah.
The thing is, in Furta, you just didn't notice that was happening. It just happened, and that's when it's good. When you don't have to worry about it. Like I said to them, they said, "Oh, are we doing a good job?" I'm like, "Look, I don't even notice, so it means you're doing a good job because I'm seamlessly. I look to the fourth, and it's there. You know, I look to the first, I'm there. I'm talking. I say, "Can we see that?" It happens. So it's just literally is seamless, and that's when it's perfect. It's when I'm struggling to find, and I'm like, "What's happening?" You know, that's when I know it's not working. But if they've got the fourth and the fifth, they've got the first battle, and then I can just commentate normally, and then I can just slip in. Okay, it'd be good to check the fourth and fifth now because and then they just literally seamlessly listening to me, and they just transfer. It's perfect, really.
Yeah. I think, look, if you've got the luxury of two drones, you just say, look, the first drone just focus on the first, second, and third, you know, just at the front, and the second drone should really be just focusing on the fourth and fifth battle, like whoever that may be at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're sort of covered, aren't you? But but the drones, obviously, it's you just couldn't run an event without it now, could you? Like, because there was a few times, without remember the drone wasn't up for a couple of the heats for a few minutes, and you know, all of a sudden you just think this is almost unwatchable without it, you know. So it's interesting.
It's scary how bad it is now without the drone, because the drone just gives you that we are in the race, we see everything. Even when you cut to the other camera, it's like going back in time. It's like you only get one rider. The drone has just this way of seeing the whole race, and it's just like I said, I don't need to go on about it anymore. But it is definitely the tool which has changed racing, and this is why it's kind of disappointing. Like I feel like slalom racing, especially with drones, is sellable. It's very, very sellable. Like it is TV prime time watchable. Like 100% believe that. It is like there's
it is.
There's not many better racing, like even car racing is pretty tame compared to like high level Furta. I reckon if you put a couple of those heats on a mainstream TV, I'd be loving to see the reaction. Like you see the America's Cup and you're like, wow, yeah, great. But it's not even on the same page for me. It's the excitement and the dynamic and everything going and the crash. You know, it's like
well, to be honest with you, in the slalom, especially at the Fuerteventura event, because it's such a great venue, but when it's over, I'm a bit sad. I'm like, oh, I want to see more of this. You know, it's a terrible time zone for me because the heats are running to 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. But but apart from that, it's the reason I was sort of laughing before, because I'm going to tell this story, to hell with it, because it's kind of funny. But I saw a comment here. Oops, I've just lost it. Where was it from Max? This one here about the woman in the dungeon. Paul loved the sausage. Like this one, Ben's probably knows where I'm going to go with this one, but it's a funny story. If anyone follows my Instagram, I just post sometimes. You know, you post a story, and sometimes I use it. Like for me, Instagram is just an opportunity to have a laugh. You know, I try not to take it too seriously. And I live in a townhouse. I bought this townhouse in Geraldton. I have a mortgage on it, because I moved from Sydney, and the way this is, like, it's set up in this an area where it's a kind of a bit of a holiday-ish area, or, you know, there's a lot of short-term rentals, and I live on the top level, and on the bottom level there's a unit that you can isolate from the rest of the townhouse, and I do an Airbnb. So I'll try not to make the story too long, but the story was that a lady booked my place, a single lady. And on the first day, she lost a key. She sent me a message. Oh, Paul, I've lost the key. Okay, no worries. I go downstairs, meet her on the street. Got to meet this lady. She's married with children. She came up to Geraldton to do a job for 4 days at the hospital, right? And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool, yep. I said, this will be a nice guest. You know, it'll be a nice, peaceful guest. I mean, most guests have a fine. Anyway, that's it. Gave her the key. End of story. Later on that night, I'm listening to Benny on the podcast, on the broadcast, you know, And I'm sitting there. I was like, what the hell's going on downstairs? I hear a lot of, moaning and groaning. So I go downstairs and my Airbnb guest is having a great time down in a room. Like it's so loud that it's coming through the walls to the point where I couldn't help myself. So I kind of make a story where I'm watching the live stream and go downstairs. You can hear this woman going off. But anyway, that's the story. It went on for hours while I was watching the slalom. So for me, it was an interesting night because I've. But the crazy thing is, I mean, look, I know this is a windsurfing podcast, but it was a firsthand as well. Who knows what this person's story was? But only hours before, I'm being told that she's married with kids, and here I am. She's in downstairs having it off with some guy while I'm watching. I'm like, oh my god, this has been going on for millennia, but oh my god, it's a bit of a worry, isn't it? Like I'm just
Airbnb. So anyway, that's going to be
yeah. So if anyone
be going,
it's good. It's consistent. Yeah, in Windsor and Geraldton, there's it's a popular stop off point because people go up north for the winter, so they just travel through Geraldton. So I mean, it helps me pay the bills and pay the mortgage and stuff, so it's good for me. But anyway, it was just a funny story. Yeah. But the reason I also say that message is there might be a few of you on this podcast that follow my Instagram, and it was kind of funny because I started, like you start a story and then you sort of back it up, and you can see how many people are watching. And I swear, I think every pro windsurfer that follows me was watching that. It was funny. It was funny, man. She was going crazy. And it went on and on and on. I was just like, what is going on? I couldn't help myself. I know it's a bit weird, but you gotta have fun with stuff sometimes. Like it's funny.
It's hard to ignore it at that level.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But the funny thing was as well is I'm watching the slalom on my screen as I'm listening to that. Like it's this background noise, and it's just the whole thing is just comical. Anyway, it's just sometimes I'm like, what am I doing here? But anyway, thanks, Max, for reminding me of that, and that's the story behind it. So now you know what was going on there.
All right. Well, on that note, I might have to go because I've got.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I've got kids in the house, but no, I've got to go get ready. Mr. Mark Paré is turning up tomorrow.
Oh, what's happening?
We've nearly got an Airbnb next door now. I'll have to give you guys a tour. We're nearly finished. Like we've finished a while ago, but we're now nearly finished. But,
that's cool, man. You might get a few windsurfers through.
Yeah, if you want to come to Sagres, and I don't know. Well, I'll wait for it to finish, and I'll put a video on. Hopefully, we don't get any guests like yours.
Oh, it'll happen sometimes, but yeah, if you can isolate it.
What's happening?
What's happening with Mark? Are you guys making some videos, or?
Yeah, it looks like he's coming over with the Chilean fella. So it will be interesting. The forecast looks actually okay, so we should get some action. But maybe we'll bring him on the podcast, do a Chilean special, see if he's got any insights. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Look forward to it. Well, thanks guys for listening in again, and we will be coming back more the regular. We're going to try and get back to kind of regular podcasting, in case you're wondering. Like I said, the summer I did have plans for doing more podcasts. It just was not possible, especially after talking so bloody long every day. But now we've calmed down a bit. We're going to get back on it, and feel free to suggest any topics you want us to cover. I think obviously we're going to be pulling out a few. We're going to try and pull out some controversial topics. We'll try and get some guests in as well. Oh, we have heard from a few people who are keen. So yeah, let's watch this space, and we'll see you soon. See ya.
Time of the week again. Sit back, relax, we got the brain of band. No need to stress in the house is Van Bellen. The game is windsurfing, you can yell them or tell them. We get the news, the views, the win biz, the brand's gear tips plus the world's best quiz. Carbs, PWA, we're professionals without the pay. There's nothing in pole dancing that we won't chat. From tandem boards to a windsurfing cat, it's your one-stop shop for a laugh and listen. Tune in each week or you'll be doing the missing.